time, we are trying to find a way forward to keep people safe, to protect our neighbors, to maintain order. And we're in a position right now where we have residents that are asking the very limited number of police officers that we have to fight ICE agents on the street, to stand by their neighbors. We cannot be at a place right now in America where we have two governmental entities that are literally fighting one another. Why are we put in this position? We're put in this position because we have approximately 600 police officers in Minneapolis, far fewer that are able to work at any given time. And there are approximately 3,000 ICE agents in the area. 3,000. The 600 police officers that we have are charged on any given day with investigating crime, stopping homicides from taking place, preventing carjackings. That's the work of a police officer in a city. Meanwhile, we have ICE agents throughout our city and throughout. This is not the path that we should be on right now in America. Thankfully, there's another path. And I want to talk to everybody who's out there, even people who aren't living in Minneapolis right now. Maybe you just put your kids to bed. Maybe you're cleaning up the dishes. I'm sure you love your family. There's no doubt in my mind that you love your town. Imagine if that city or that town was suddenly invaded by thousands of federal agents that do not share the values that you hold dear. Imagine if your daily routines were disrupted. The local cafe that you eat at was shut down because they're scared that their own family might get torn apart. Imagine if schools shut down and suddenly parents got to figure out what to do for daycare. This is not creating safety. It's certainly not creating safety when a huge percentage of the shootings that have taken place so far this year in Minneapolis have been by ICE. So let's be very clear. I've seen conduct from ICE that is disgusting and is intolerable. If it were your city, it would be unacceptable there too. And for anyone that is taking the bait tonight, stop. That is not helpful. Go home. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos. And I have seen thousands of people throughout our city peacefully protest.
Okay, I'm just making an adjustment to the audio. Let's see if this works. If it doesn't work and nobody can hear, let me know.
You were saying that there was unlawful protesting that happened tonight. Can you be a little bit more specific?
The question was about unlawful protesting. It has absolutely become an unlawful assembly. There are individuals throwing fireworks at police officers, individuals throwing ice, rocks, other projectiles at police officers. It is well past the line, and people need to leave.
What kind of communication, if any, of you have with federal law enforcement tonight?
The question was communication with federal law enforcement tonight. That communication was all on the scene. It was primarily related to trying to ensure that we were getting medical aid because we had a report of a shooting, and then also to try and ensure that we could maintain the integrity of the crime scene so that there could be an investigation into what occurred.
Do you know what the condition of the person shot is? And we're also told that agent was injured and taken to the hospital. Do you have any updates on either condition?
I have no updates on either condition. It's my understanding that this is a non-life-threatening gunshot wound.
Can you talk about anything you know about that initial stop that started on 94, that initial chase, if you will, and anything you know about the person that they were following?
So I know nothing about the person that they were following. And then the rest of the question was about the initial chase. It's my understanding that we have some other 911 call indicating that someone from the house was calling, saying that the person in the car was running from ICE. I was driving towards the residence. That's my understanding.
Could Mayor Fry respond to criticism that local officials are contributing to rising rhetoric, and that's part of the reason why we're seeing, as DHS says, just protesters behaving in this sort of way?
What rhetoric? So the question was, can I respond to rhetoric? What rhetoric?
DHS says that there's rhetoric from local officials that they say has just kind of taken up the temperature of everything that's going on in Minneapolis.
So the question was, there has been the accusation that local officials have perhaps taken up the temperature in Minneapolis. First, I'll say, show me a single place where I have encouraged anything other than peace. Show me a single place where we have encouraged violence. I have said from the get-go to people in Minneapolis, do not take the bait. We are better than that. I have encouraged peaceful protest, and I'll say it again, I am inspired by the tens of thousands of people who have in fact peacefully protested and fairly documented with transparency what is taking place. That is allowed in any city in the country. And I have made it clear that to the extent people are going beyond that, and those protests are not peaceful, and the violence that the chief mentioned, it's got to stop, and you got to go home.
Two more questions.
If this situation is not sustainable, as you said a few minutes ago, where do you go from here? What options do you as mayor have from this point forward?
So just yesterday or the day before, I'm losing track of the days here, Minneapolis, along with St. Paul and the Attorney General's office at the state, filed a lawsuit. That lawsuit outlined the duress that our city is presently experiencing and how making people safe in our city is made all the more difficult based on the presence of ICE. We are hopeful that we will succeed ultimately in that lawsuit. Of course, my concern is that yet another shooting will take place. Yet another person will be injured or killed. This is not a new concern. The chief and I have been laying this concern out for well over a month at this point. This is not sustainable. Our officers, they are working tirelessly. Again, we have about 600 officers. There's about 3,000 ICE agents in border control. We need our officers responding to the basic day-to-day 911 calls. We don't have the capacity to both deal with that and all of this conduct that we're seeing from ICE on the daily basis. Earlier today and yesterday, I was out on a couple of major commercial corridors in our city. People are scared. You know, there's basic rights that you should have to be able to live safely in your neighborhood, to be able to go downstairs and head to the cafe or the flower shop. The people that would normally keep up these shops, American citizens, by the way, many of them, are terrified because American citizens are getting picked up off the street by people in masks. That's not the way things should be conducted in any city in America. That's not who we are. That's not America. So I'm calling for peace. Everybody has a role in achieving that peace. And we're going to try to do everything that we can to keep it.
What's Governor Walz this evening? If so, what does he have to say?
Yeah, so our office, yes, is in touch with the governor's office, as we've been for the last week here. He has been an excellent partner in both ensuring that we have additional resources through the Minnesota State Patrol, through the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and that work will be done in partnership. Thanks, everybody.
We'll have more information tomorrow that we'll put out. Thank you.
That, of course, was the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, and the police chief in Minneapolis. The situation has spiraled out of control tonight, to say the least. There's been another shooting of somebody in Minneapolis. Quite frankly, we can't believe anything the government puts out with regard to that, because these so-called these ICE people, I don't really know what to refer to them as, because I'm not sure this is actually sworn law enforcement that we're watching. So there's that problem. Whoever they are, these people in masks that have a placard that says, you know, police or ICE on their chest, apparently shot somebody tonight. They don't use body cameras, so it's hard to know exactly what is going on. There was a statement earlier today by the governor of Minnesota that I think is part of the reason that this was ratcheted up. As we all know, that on January 7, Renee Good was shot to death by ICE, and there was a effort by the Trump administration to deny that this was a summary execution, quite frankly, and an effort now by the Trump administration to investigate the wife of Renee Good rather than investigate what actually happened in the shooting. And the federal government, as run by Trump, will not let the local authorities participate in the investigation. So, of course, they're blocking the local authorities from finding out what really happened. And this escalation, of course, is I think, an extremely intentional confrontation because, of course, Governor Walz, as everybody remembers, was the running mate of Kamala Harris, the former vice president, in 2024. And so they haven't just picked out Minneapolis by accident. It's a Democratic-run city. Donald Trump is trying to push everybody around and assert his authority. And there's a theory that he's trying to drive this situation into something called the Insurrection Act so he can make up an excuse to cancel or in some way control this year's midterm elections that will decide the control of Congress next year. And quite frankly, the Republicans are all but certain to lose the U.S. House because of all of this chaos that is going on. They know that. Everybody knows that. Everyone understands that that's what's going on here. And so this is, quite frankly, all of this chaos that we're seeing is likely a manufactured attempt by Donald Trump to create enough chaos to justify some sort of a cancellation of the 2026 elections. I know that sounds crazy and far-fetched, but that's certainly, given the levels of deception and lying and everything else, that would not be out of the question at all. So let's take a look at what Governor Walz said earlier today. And I think that this certainly is why there's a lot of tension tonight.
Minnesotans, what's happening in Minnesota right now defies belief. News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live. They're pulling over people indiscriminately, including U.S. citizens, and demanding to see their papers. And at grocery stores, at bus stops, even at our schools, they're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans, kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process. Let's be very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. Last week, that campaign claimed the life of Renee Nicole Good. We've all watched the video. We've all seen what happened. And yet, instead of conducting an impartial investigation so we can hold accountable the officer responsible for Renee's death, the Trump administration is devoting the full power of the federal government to finding an excuse to attack the victim and her family. Just yesterday, 6 federal prosecutors, including the longtime career prosecutor leading the charge to investigate and eliminate fraud in our state's programs, quit their jobs rather than go along with this assault on the United States Constitution. But as bad as it's been, Donald Trump intends for it to get worse. This week, he went online to promise that, quote, the day of retribution and reckoning is coming. That's a direct threat against the people of this state who dared to vote against him 3 times and who continue to stand up for freedom with courage and empathy and profound grace. All across Minnesota, people are stepping up to help their neighbors who are being unjustly and unlawfully targeted. They're distributing care packages and walking kids to school and raising their voices in peaceful protest, even though doing so has made many of our fellow Minnesotans targets for violent retribution. Folks, I know it's scary, and I know it's absurd that we all have to be defending law and order, justice, and humanity while also caring for our families and trying to do our jobs. So tonight, let me say once again to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, end this occupation. You've done enough. Let me say 4 critical things to the people of Minnesota. 4 things I want you to hear as you watch the news and look out for your neighbors. First, Donald Trump wants this chaos. He wants confusion. And yes, he wants more violence on our streets. We cannot give him what he wants. We must protest loudly, urgently, but also peacefully. Indeed, as hard as we will fight in the courts and at the ballot box, we cannot and will not let violence prevail. You're angry, I'm angry. Angry is not a strong enough word, but we must remain peaceful. Second, you are not powerless, you are not helpless, and you are certainly not alone. All across Minnesota, people are learning about opportunities, not just to resist, but to help people who are in danger. Thousands upon thousands of our fellow Minnesotans are going to be relying on mutual aid in the days and weeks to come, and they need our support. Tonight, I want to share another way you can help. Witness. Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution. The third thing I want to say to you tonight is, we will not have to live like this forever. Accountability is coming at the voting booth and in court. We will reclaim our communities from Donald Trump. We will reestablish a sense of safety for our neighbors, and we will bring an end to this moment of chaos, confusion, and trauma. We will find a way to move forward, and we'll do it together, and we'll not be alone. Every day, we are working with business leaders, faith leaders, legal experts, and elected officials from across this country. They've all seen what Donald Trump is trying to do to our state, and they know their states could be next. And that brings me to the 4th thing I want to say tonight, Minnesota, how incredibly proud I am of the way that you've risen to meet this unbearable moment. But I'm not at all surprised, because this is who we are. Minnesotans believe in the rule of law, and Minnesotans believe in the dignity of all people. We're a place where there's room for everybody, no matter who you are or who you love or where you came from. A place where we feed our kids, we take care of our neighbors, and we look out for those in the shadows of life. We're an island of decency in a country being driven towards cruelty. We will remain an island of decency, of justice, of community, of peace. And tonight I come before you simply to ask, don't let anyone take that away from us. Thank you, protect each other, and may God bless the people of Minnesota.
Now, remember, once again, this, of course, was the running mate of Kamala Harris, the vice president, during the 2024 campaign versus Donald Trump. It's not an accident that it's Minnesota. It's not an accident that he's picked Minnesota for this special moment. The other thing to remember is that this week started with Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, making a statement against the President of the United States, which is unprecedented. I would also point out that today, this morning, we found out that the federal government, in the form of the DOJ, raided the home of a Washington Post reporter who was primarily focused on the federal job cuts by President Trump and the actions of DOJ. They took her laptop, her Washington Post laptop, and they took her personal laptop. And of course, the reason why all of that is important is because the federal government, as run by Donald Trump, has decided they can do whatever they want to whomever they want, anytime they want. And people have to understand, and this is a very strong statement from Governor Walz, there will come a day when this ends, one way or the other. I mean, it's not something that is sustainable, as the Mayor Fry said, of Minneapolis. It is not sustainable, and it will come to an end. One of the endpoints is the 2026 elections this year of Congress, where the president would lose a ton of power, because remember, Congress controls the money, and he understands that. And again, there's a theory out there that he's trying to push the button of the Insurrection Act so he can declare martial law and that the elections are canceled and a bunch of nonsense. And so to bring everyone to that brink, you have to have chaos. And he's spurring chaos in Minnesota. So this was an extremely strong statement. That part in there about recording people is what is likely the thing that has put the Trump folks over the edge. As you can see, Team Trump and the Trump administration are united in their lying. They're united in their script. They all say the same thing. They're not interested in facts. They're not interested in anybody saying anything different. They just say the same thing over and over again. And now they're trying to buy and control media to amplify the lies that they tell. And that, of course, includes CBS and, of course, Fox News, which is just amplification, saying the same thing. Now they're claiming that the cop that shot Renee Good to death had some sort of an injury. Of course, there's no evidence of that whatsoever. You don't see any medical reports. And in fact, there was reports that he had stopped by the hospital and left the same day of the shooting. You can see for yourself on the video him walking away completely unharmed and uninjured. So, I mean, they're trying to create this idea, this narrative that he's some sort of a victim of something, when, of course, Renee Good is the one that is dead. Now, that's a classic thing that we've seen a million times before. Obviously, the situation is not legal. Walz makes the point that this will, of course, be fleshed out in court, which is absolutely correct. What ends up happening, but it happens very slowly, right? These things that we're seeing tonight, the chaos in Minneapolis, is happening very quickly. Unfortunately, the court system moves very slowly. What happens is people sue, they sue the government, they sue for their injuries, and then 5 months later, they win. That doesn't get the headlines, of course, that what we see tonight in Minnesota gets, with all the flashbangs and the cops running around and all this other stuff. The thing I will end with is that, I am related in many ways to law enforcement. My father was a cop in New York. Boyfriend was a U.S. Capitol Police officer, and I have other cops in the family. I have to say that what I'm seeing on that screen does not look like professional law enforcement to me. It does not. There's something missing with these people. The Daily Beast this morning, it's about to be January 15th. I'm on the East Coast. It's about to be January 15th, which, by the way, is Martin Luther King's real birthday. But it's January 14th. This morning, the Daily Beast, some whistleblower apparently dropped the names of all the ICE officers, and they're putting it out in some sort of a database. It's going to be very interesting to see who are these people. Who are these people? All this nonsense about we have to wear masks because we're afraid of getting doxxed is all nonsense, okay? All nonsense. The police force that my dad was on in New York right now is a 40,000 person police force, the New York City Police Department. Certainly not perfect, but their officers have their name on their chest and a badge number. You can identify each officer by name, by their last name, and by their shield number. The shield number of my dad was 1311. At any rate, if you want to identify a cop, if something happens, or you need to identify a police officer in any jurisdiction in this country, New York, Boston, Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, Chicago, I don't care. You can do that by the name and the shield number. The fact that these people are walking around in masks with no name and no shield is bullshit. It is craziness. There is no reason for that. Okay? Absolutely no reason to be hiding your identity as a professional law enforcement officer. None whatsoever. And so you best believe that if the Democratic Party gets control of Congress, at least the House, and they may get control of the Senate as well, the way the polls are looking for Donald Trump, but they're certainly going to get the House. First thing they should pass is something that is a requirement that all professional police have their name and shield number open and available to be seen publicly to the public. There is no reason for that not to be the case. So that is a huge red flag here, that everybody's hiding their face, and then they're putting lights in people's cameras so that they can't record what they're doing. Why? If what you're doing is legal, what are you afraid of? Hooray to some of these people that we're seeing in these videos that are asking for warrants. Nobody can be on your property or enter your home without a warrant, without a search warrant. Forget about entering your home. They can't even be on your property. So we've seen some pretty brave video of people yelling at these people, whoever the heck they are, that claim to be ICE or claim to be law enforcement. Again, I don't see any confirmation of that. And until I see some confirmation of that, I don't believe it. Their behavior does not look professional law enforcement to me. At any rate, they have been yelling at these people, where is your warrant? Where is the proof of your authority to take somebody's liberty away? And for all of you conservatives out there that believe in less government, where are you right now in this moment? Where are you right now in this moment? Because you know damn well, if this was Joe Biden or Barack Obama doing this, you wouldn't be thinking it was such a cool idea. But again, Fox News has filled everybody's empty head with a bunch of nonsense. Okay, until, of course, it happens to them, and then it's always different. So this is a very interesting situation. Just let me look at some of the comments in the chat. Diva Dawn, this is so sad and illegal. This administration will not get away with this. I agree. Most of them don't want ICE occupying our communities. Call your congressman. You do have to call members of Congress. I was on the Capitol Hill today, the U.S. Capitol. There are a bunch of Democrats that are traveling to Minnesota, which I actually think is slightly dangerous. I said to a friend of mine who's a member of Congress today, do not travel to Minnesota. I mean, this is an outlaw federal government that thinks it can do whatever it wants to whomever it wants. They're prosecuting a member of Congress right now, Congresswoman MacGyver in New Jersey, I think unlawfully, quite frankly. They're threatening members who are just quoting the Military Code of Justice legally, which is their legal right to do. All of that stuff is going to be untangled in court, and the federal government, is run by Donald Trump, is going to lose those cases. They went after, of course, the U.S. Senator Mark Kelly to try and fool around with his pension, and that is going to, he's already sued them, and he is going to win. He is going to win. There's no way he's losing that case. They can't single him out and F around with his pension because they don't like something that he said, which, by the way, is completely legal, what he said, non-threatening. They just don't like somebody pushing that button of we don't want you to get our military members thinking about the Uniform Code of Military Justice. We don't want you to tell our military members that they're not supposed to obey an unlawful order. That is, telling them that is exactly what Donald Trump doesn't want to have happen, because he wants people to do what he says and have loyalty to him and not the law and the Constitution of the United States. That's what that was about. So, of course, that when those members pushed that button, They absolutely panicked and went after all those members of Congress, by the way, none of whom are backing down. They're all former military, none of whom are backing down. And right, Diva Dawn, some of these people probably are J6ers. Remember, the federal government is giving these new ICE people $50,000 each. $50,000 each. Most of these people probably don't have two nickels to rub together. If you know anything about the statistics behind what most Americans have in their bank account, the average bank account in the United States is under $5,000, easily under $5,000. The average salary in the United States is about $55,000. So $50,000 to be handed that is a lot of money to a lot of people. And these people who attacked the U.S. Capitol didn't look to me like they were Rhodes Scholars or, wealthy and well-to-do. The fact that they were dumb enough to read something on Facebook and believe it, and believe that the 2020 election was stolen and then attack the U.S. Capitol would tell you that you're not talking about a bunch of geniuses here. So they do not have a bunch of money. I actually went to federal court to watch. My boyfriend at the time was a U.S. Capitol police officer. He was one of the witnesses to everything that happened on Jan 6th, so he had to testify in court. And these people showed up in court, and they were the dumbest of the dumb. Who else would believe, from reading a Facebook post, that an election was stolen? Who else would just believe Donald Trump face value, other than somebody who's not that bright, quite frankly? I'm going to say it because, I saw these people face to face, and I thought these people are not very bright. So you think about when you offer $50,000 to these people, they're going to try to run and get it. Let's just be real. And of course, that's our tax money. You got to remember that, unfortunately, in May of last year, Congress appropriated into the billions into ICE. That money is locked in for 3 years. For 3 years. So literally funded in a bigger way than the U.S. Marines. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. The budget for ICE is bigger than the Marine Corps budget. And I understand that, of course, the Marine Corps is our smallest branch of the military, but still, the Marine Corps budget, it's into the billions what ICE is getting, because Donald Trump is on an absolute obsession to get Black and brown immigrants out of this country. Not just illegal, because you can see there's a bunch of citizens that have been involved in some of these incidents. And there have been people who have immigrated here to this country who are citizens, who are of color. And of course, that is who they are targeting. What else here? So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of tension. We understand that. But what Tim Walz said about not despairing, I think, is important. The day will come. The day will arrive when this ends. The day will arrive when the page is turned away from what we are seeing, which is the rise of authoritarianism in this country in a way that we have not seen. Certainly one of the most tense periods in this country, probably since the end of the Civil War. And that's saying something. There's been a lot of tense periods in the United States, but this one is really consequential to the question of whether or not American democracy will continue after this. And that will be answered by the voters if they, of course, get a chance to vote, because I do think that Donald Trump and his crazy friend Stephen Miller and the other idiot Steve Bannon are well aware that they do not want Americans voting, because once Americans vote, it's over for them. They are going to be out of power. And of course, 2028, can't come soon enough. But it's really, of course, the first big election will be the midterms at the end of this year, in less than 300 days, in November. So this is the situation, obviously, in Minneapolis. There's no question that this administration is going to try to duplicate this around the country. I actually think that they're going to have problems recruiting enough people to try to do what they're doing. Remember that there's about 900,000 sworn police in the United States. We are a nation of 330 million people. 330 million people, and they're talking about trying to deport 15 million people. I mean, just do the math on that. They don't have enough people to do it. There's not enough people in our military. There's the logistical questions of it, but I suspect they're going to try anyway, because they're obsessed, they are white supremacists, and they are going to try to do it anyway. And people like Stephen Miller who run their mouth reckless, this is their chance, this is their opportunity. We will see what's happening. As you can see, there's a lot of opposition to what they're doing. The polls are starting to come back to show that most Americans are not in favor of this. So that's where it's at. I'm going to stop talking now. This is Lauren Burke. I will be back very soon. Everybody have a good night. It is midnight on the East Coast. Minneapolis was probably Central Time. And I'm sure there's going to be more tomorrow. People need to hold it together and get organized and understand what moment we're in history. It is difficult to watch, but action is the answer, not talking or anything else. This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, and I appreciate it. Good night.
Somewhere. What's going on? Thank you. Are you watching now?
Yeah. No, I was watching when I left, but it's excellent. I love it. I love the traffic's blowing up. You were in Brooklyn last night. Where?
I was in Bushwick.
Okay, my grandmother's house is in Crown Heights.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw you, I was trying to look at what the pizza place was to see where
As soon as we got there, someone recognized the pizza place. They're like, we got to get out of here. Someone had
get out. It was great.
blown up our spot.
This show was freaking fantastic.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it, man. Love it.